A man, intrigued by the supernatural, decided to pay a visit to a psychic with a respectable reputation in his town. Upon entering the dimly lit room, he observed the tarot reader seated at a table with her tarot cards spread out before her. The atmosphere was eerie, with a single flickering candle casting shadows on the walls. The tarot reader studied the cards intently, then, with a great expression, delivered the unfortunate news.
I'm sorry, but I have to be straightforward with you. Your mother-in-law will suffer a violent and terrible death this year.
The man was visibly shaken by the revelation. He glanced at the psychic's wrinkled face, then at the solitary flickering candle, and finally at his own trembling hands. Taking a few deep breaths, he tried to regain his composure. He knew he had to find out more. With great effort, he steadied his voice and locked eyes with the tarot reader. Finally, he asked the question that had been weighing on his mind. "Tell me, will I get away with it?" A mother visits her son for dinner, who has a girl as a roommate. During the meal, his mother can't help but notice how pretty his roommate is. She has long been suspicious of a relationship between the two, and this has only made her more curious. Over the course of the evening, while watching the two interact, she starts to wonder if there's more between her son and his roommate. Reading his mom's thoughts, her son volunteers, "I know what you must be thinking, but I assure you, we're just roommates." About a week later, his roommate comes to him and says,
"Ever since your mother came over for dinner, I've been unable to find the silver serving tray. You don't suppose your mother took it, do you?"
He replies, "Well, I doubt it, but I'll email her just to be sure." He sits down and writes, "Dear Mom, after visiting me, I found that my silver serving tray is missing. I'm not saying that you took it, and I'm not saying that you didn't take it, but the fact remains that it has been missing ever since you were over for dinner. Love, your son." Several days later, he receives an email from his mother which reads,
"Dear son, I'm not saying that you sleep with your roommate, and I'm not saying that you don't sleep with her. But the fact remains that if she was sleeping in her own bed, she would have found the silver serving tray by now. Under her pillow."
A wealthy man is looking for excitement, so he decides to put an ad in the newspaper. The ad says,
"I will give $10,000 to anyone that can make my elephant jump."
The next day, people come from all over the world to try to get his elephant to jump. There are even hypnotists who try, but no one can get the elephant to jump. Then, a man drives up in a blue Corvette and asks, "Are you the guy with the ad?" The rich man replies,
"Yes, I am."
The man then asks, "Is that your elephant?"
"Yes, it is,"
replies the rich man. The man walks back to his car and returns with a 2x4. He walks behind the elephant and hits it right between the legs. The elephant jumps a good 8 feet in the air. The rich man, amazed, hands him the $10,000. The man then gets into his Corvette and drives off. A week later, the rich man decides to put another ad in the newspaper. The ad says,
"I will give anyone $20,000 to make my elephant turn his head from side to side."
The man has seen his elephant's head move up and down, but never from side to side. People come from all over the world to try to get the elephant to turn his head from side to side. No one can do it. After everyone has left, the same man in the Corvette drives up. He walks up to the elephant and asks, "Do you remember me?" The elephant nods his head up and down. The man then asks, "Do you want me to do it again?" A 90-year-old man is on his deathbed. Summoning his last bit of strength, he lifts his head slowly and whispers, "Is my beloved wife Sarah here with me?" Sarah answers lovingly,
"Yes, dear, I'm here."
He then asks, "Is my son, my wonderful son, are you here with me?" His son replies, "Yes, Father, I'm here right beside you." He asks, "Is my beautiful daughter here?" In tears, his daughter says,
"Oh, yes, Daddy, I'm here."
He continues, "Are my brothers and sisters here with me as well?" They too tell him that they are with him. The old man lays back quietly, closes his eyes, and asks, "If everybody is here, why is the damn light in the kitchen on?" A man wakes up and looks at his clock. It's 7:07 a.m. He gets out of bed, goes downstairs, and glances at his calendar. It's July 7th, the 7th day of the 7th month. As he steps outside, he notices bus number 7 going by. He walks to a coffee shop and orders a coffee and a bite to eat, and the bill comes to $7.77. The man thinks,
all these sevens? I think the universe is trying to tell me something.
So, feeling that maybe this is his lucky day, the man cuts out early from work and goes to the racetrack. He reads the racing schedule and sees that in the 7th race, horse number 7 is called Lucky 7. The man can't believe it. He runs up to the teller and bets all his money on the horse. The horse came in 7th. 3 men arrive at a Caribbean beach resort and quickly start talking about their lives and how they got there. The first man says,
I used to run a successful business in the Midwest. One day, unfortunately, there was a huge fire and my entire warehouse burned to the ground. I collected the insurance on it and decided to move here.
The other two give a sympathetic nod. The second one says, I have a similar story. I used to own a jewelry store in Los Angeles, but it was destroyed in a break-in one night. I collected the insurance and relocated down here. They both turn to the third man. He begins, On the East Coast, I used to run a small fishing business. Unfortunately, a hurricane ruined everything last year. I collected my insurance and came here. The first two guys look at each other for a moment. Finally, one of them asks,
How do you start a hurricane?
Dr. Rosenberg, a distinguished physician, completed his medical studies in his hometown before establishing himself in Manhattan, where he swiftly ascended to the pinnacle of his profession. One day, he was invited to present a significant paper at a conference, coincidentally held in his hometown. He approached the stage, and while placing his papers on the lectern, they slid off. As he bent down to retrieve them, he accidentally emitted a resounding fart. Amplified by the microphone, it could be heard throughout the room and down the hall. Despite his embarrassment, he managed to regain composure and deliver his paper before hastily exiting the stage. He then returned to Manhattan, vowing never to return. Years later, when his elderly mother fell ill, Dr. Rosenberg reluctantly returned to his hometown. Checking into a hotel under the alias Smith and arriving in the cover of darkness, the desk clerk inquired, Is this your first visit to our city, Mr. Smith? Dr. Rosenberg replied,
Well, young man, no, it isn't. I grew up here but moved away after receiving my education.
Curious, the desk clerk probed further, Haven't you visited since? Dr. Rosenberg hesitated before confessing,
Actually, I did visit once many years ago. But an embarrassing thing happened, and since then, I've been too ashamed to return.
Attempting to console him, the clerk remarked, Sir, well, I don't know your life experience. I've learned that what seems embarrassing to me may not be remembered by others years later. Skeptical, Dr. Rosenberg responded,
Son, I doubt that's the case with my incident.
The clerk, seeking details, asked, Was it a long time ago? Dr. Rosenberg admitted,
Yes, many years ago.
Still curious, the clerk asked, Was it before the Rosenberg fart?